So for the Central Division in the Eastern Conference, it consists of the Milwaukee Bucks, Indiana Pacers, Detroit Pistons, Chicago Bulls, and Cleveland Cavaliers. Now I'm going to do something a bit different than the previous two times that I've been doing this sort of division summary. The previous two times I was talking about their plan, like the plan for each team and their goal. But then I realized, that doesn't really work because they're pretty close to each other, very few differences, and the team almost half-assed, excuse my language, half-assed in a way. So instead, I'm going to more talk about the way that I feel about the team, not in a prediction way, or not in a goal way, or in a plan way. If that comes up, great, but it has to come up naturally, in a way that makes sense, rather than being forced. Because some of these teams don't have a plan. Some of them don't have a goal. Some of them, it's very straightforward. Like the Cleveland Cavaliers, it's very straightforward. Like the Phoenix Suns, not mostly straightforward. They're still that was a bad example. Atlanta Hawks, very straightforward. That's a better example than the Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns, I have no idea what's going on with them, but we'll get to them when we get to them. So let me start off with the Milwaukee Bucks. They are definitely going to take a hit defensively with the absence of Malcolm Brogdon, who went to another Central Division team, the Indiana Pacers, who I'm going to talk about next. But the Milwaukee Bucks, they still have Giannis Antetokounmpo, who can hold down the fort defensively, who's a monster offensively. I think that they're going to do a lot more of what they did last year with Budenholzer as the head coach, which is, Giannis, you just bulldoze into the paint, do what you want there, kick it out to whoever's open for a three, and everyone has the green light to just shoot it. And that's further proven by their addition of Cal Korver with their retention of Brook Lopez and still having Chris Middleton in the mix as well. So I think it's going to be a lot of threes or a lot of points in the paint. I think that's going to be their offense. Limited mid-range shots, very Rocket-like on the offensive side. This year for them is all about getting to the NBA Finals, since the East is as wide open as it can be, with Kawhi Leonard no longer there, and really only a few teams truly competing for getting to the finals in the Eastern Conference. And I think another big thing for them is with more of the three-point shooting, as well as developing Giannis's perimeter game, is going to be a lot more of Giannis not being as stuck as he is when it comes to clutch time. I butchered that. Crunch time, clutch time. It's going to be a lot more of him not being stuck, not being double teamed, him figuring it out, making big time shots. So that's a lot to look forward to. Hopes are big for them. Plans are big. Hopefully they are able to follow up on it. The other team, the Indiana Pacers, who did get Malcolm Brogdon and do have Victor Oladipo returning from injury, I believe that they are one of the few teams that are actually competing to go to the NBA Finals, and I think that they're more of an undercover sleeper team. I think that when people think of the Eastern Conference and who are the true contenders there, immediately their mind jumps to Milwaukee Bucks and the 76ers. But the Pacers are sleeper picks. Now, I don't think that they're going to win the whole thing, obviously. But I think that they can make it interesting in the road to the finals, especially in the Eastern Conference. I think that overall, especially as seen last year with Oladipo, and without Oladipo, this Pacers team works really, really well as a team, as a unit, not very individualistic. They're all about the offense working together. You had Sabonis doing great off the bench. You had Miles Turner not putting up huge numbers, but again, doing his job. You had Oladipo doing great. You had Bojan Bogdanovic going off some games. Now, he's not there anymore. So I think the offense around Oladipo is going to struggle a bit, and I think that this season is really about the offense and Oladipo. I think that this season is about the offense figuring out how to play well when Oladipo is not on the floor. And I think that this is also the year for Oladipo to finally get really healthy and start returning to the court to battle with his teammates. Yes, they can make things really interesting in the Eastern Conference on the road to the finals. But I think that this season's more about Oladipo, team chemistry, and the whole offense when Oladipo's not on the court. Next, I have the Detroit Pistons. The Pistons, I really don't know what to do with them. They're really stuck, and they have been this year and last year. They're not really going anywhere. They're not falling out of playoff contention. They're not really rising up to the finals contenders or huge playoff contenders at that point. They're really stagnant. Blake Griffin's health is always in flux. I really do not know what to do with this Pistons team. And I think that they also need to figure out what to do with that. Just like how I'm trying to figure out what the heck they're going to do. They have to figure out what the heck they're going to do. Because they have Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond. And initially that seemed like a really, really good idea. But now it's like they'll go on a stretch of some really nice games where Blake Griffin is playing great. But then they go on another huge stretch of not playing that great. And they didn't really get anyone else that can really make them better. Yes, they got Derrick Rose, but how much can Derrick Rose really do for that team? I think that they're going to be fun to watch with Derrick Rose, Blake Griffin, Reggie Jackson, Andre Drummond. They have a decent bench with Luke Kennard on it. I think that they're going to be fun to watch, but they're just not there yet where they're actual contenders. They're barely a playoff team. They're stuck. They're not going anywhere. They got to figure out what they're going to do with Blake Griffin's contract, Andre Drummond. It's really a mess, and they're stuck. They're in purgatory. They're in the middle of the pack. They're not great. They're not bad. But they need a plan. They need a plan of action. And they need one fast. Otherwise, you're just wasting years here. Next, I have the Chicago Bulls. And I really like where this team is going. They're a young team. They got Kobe White. They got Thomas Satoransky. They got Chris Dunn. Thaddeus Young. Wendell Carter Jr. Denzel Valentine. Ryan Arcidiacono. And not all those players are on the young spectrum. But you get my point. They're a young, growing team. Obviously, they didn't play great last year. They didn't go above and beyond in the standings, winning a whole bunch of games. But that's fine. They're a young team. They're a very young team. But I think that despite what their standing and their record may have showed, I think that they showed a lot of promise last season. I think that at this point, it's pretty clear what they're supposed to do and what they're going to do, which is to continue developing who they drafted, who they got in free agency, the young players, around the two-headed monster of Zach LaVine and Lauri Markkanen. I think that's pretty clear. And I think that they are in a spot where they can contend for a playoff spot, but they probably won't get one, but they can, again, make it interesting, contend for one. And if they do, then that's great. But if they don't, that's perfectly fine. Because at this point, it's all about developing your players to work together cohesively, get better on defense, especially for them. Because the offense is there. Just get better defensively. And all of it is just getting that chemistry right, meshing the youth all together. That's literally what the season is going to be. And after the season, I think that they take the next step after that to finally try to get to the playoffs, start contending. Now the fifth team, the Cleveland Cavaliers, this is pretty clear as day. This is clear as day. They're just rebuilding. They got Colin Sexton, Darius Garland. At this point, it's just put those two together and hope it works. That's literally what it is. They have to figure out what to do with Kevin Love. That's another thing. That's another story. But he's probably just going to stay in Cleveland. That's really all there is to it for the Cleveland Cavaliers. They're not contending anytime soon. At least not this year, not next year. They're going to be a bottom feeder team once again. But it's all about developing those two young players.